And now we are back. Tell me a little bit about the literature that you have that you shared with us this morning.
Let me say this. It's so important to come out and talk about things, to speak from the gut, to speak from the heart, to be led by the holy divine will of the Holy Spirit. It's another thing to understand the thinking of other people and get as much information as you can. And an educated person is a person who understands how to concretize bodies of knowledge. And so I begin to just go back and from a lot of different places and begin to read and begin to ask questions. You take something like this, the African Americans and climate change. This is an adult curriculum, African Americans, climate change, because since climate change negatively, disproportionately impacts us, and this first section says, an unequal burden. African American churches have historically accepted the responsibility to address problems that have a negative impact on our community. Climate change now is a very familiar word, but many of us are just beginning to understand its disproportionate impact. So here we have information, faith, facts, and climate change, how racism is a part of it. These are newsletters going to our congregation about putting energy into stewardship, how to be good stewards of God's green earth. And all of this is about information about in North Carolina, in South Carolina, and what we as African Americans must understand. Then I begin to look at books. Here's one, Serve God, Save the Planet. When you're serving God, when you're understanding what God is really doing, then the planet, because God is concerned as much about a giraffe on the plains in Kenya as he is about us. One could say, oh, that's the animal world. If he's so, and how do you know he's concerned? Because last week in Atlanta, it was freezing, and everything had stopped. And now it's 70 degrees and birds are chirping. Where were the birds? God protected the birds during the freeze. So serve God, save the planet. Here's something. We have the King James.
Excuse me, let me interrupt you right here. First of all, keep it moving, but take your time. Slow it down. It's okay because we got plenty of time. Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Serve God, Save the Planet, and by Matthew Sleeth. It's so important. If we're serving God, then we've got to understand what he created. And we're mere stewards. We're only here for 60 to 70 years to try to keep what we're doing. So there's no sense in thinking you're going to be around here to 120. So do your part on the planet. I've read the King James, the New Revised Standard Version, the NIV, all of these. But this is the Bible I like to look at, the Green Bible. It's called the Green Bible. Now some would say, you don't use a Green Bible. Yes, the Green Bible. And the foreword of this Bible is written by a man named Desmond Tutu. And the Green Letter Bible is really written in the New Revised Standard Version, but all of the passages in here that refer to the green earth and what God has done is in green. Here's the book of Hosea, a whole page in green. So when you question, was God concerned about the planet? Was God concerned about the environment? Was God concerned about climate change? You can look back to and for particularly where Christianity is concerned, and this is found in many other faith literature writings, but it shows what it's done. This one here, love God and heal the earth. You notice everything. These are writers from a variety of areas talking about if God can plan it, if God can put it together, if God can keep the stars put them up every night, and we can set our whole system, our whole ecological system around the planets, around gravity, around certain things that remain constant, then something keeps that in place. And we choose that that's a godness that keeps everything in place, and we set our own cultures around that. So consequently, if God's put a perfectly balanced earth in place and we're doing things counter to that, then we're imbalanced. So our minds get all twisted, our bodies get all out of shape. It's ridiculous for 5-year-olds to be so overweight because we've said, now we're going to feed them more food, we're going to sit them in front of little machines where they don't exercise. God said, exercise that body, eat appropriately. I will give you fresh water that flows. I will give you the air. I will give you the food that grows. But what do? We want more food, so we'll kill off the animals, we'll put pesticides on it, so we're eating food that's destroying us, we're drinking water that's filthy, and all of those are environmental concerns around the health issue. that we've got to be concerned
Let me
about.
interject. You mentioned something about fluoride. What you said about the toothpaste earlier?
Toothpaste,
Please.
look on the side of your toothpaste today. Fluoride was used in 1938-40 in New York when there was an outbreak of rats. And they used fluoride to kill the rats in New York, but they found out it was so powerful. So then some scientists came along and said, fluoride can in some way stave off tooth decay. So they began to put fluoride in toothpaste. And fluoride, if you look on the side of your toothpaste, it says, use very sparingly, and if you use too much, call the CDC because it is a poison. It's on every tube of toothpaste as a warning. And even now, they were putting fluoride in certain little baby foods. Gerber Food is taking that all out of it now. Fluoride, they were using fluorinated water. There are cities now that are passing through City Hall, City Council, that we will not use fluorinated water in our drinking water because of the poison and using fresh water. But when you talk about organic growing of food and fluorinated water and foods like that, most poor people cannot afford that. So we're still being subjected to the fluorinated water, the toothpaste, the food that has been pesticized, and so we're facing that. And so we've got to be concerned about that. But again, now we come into the economic barrier. We cannot afford in many instances to pay for the water that has been purified and put in certain bottles. How many of us can just buy the bottled water? You notice people of means, and some are stretching it, buying bottled waters. Why are they buying bottled water? Because much of the water that's coming out of the tap is fluorinated water. So these are the things that you continuously watch and you continuously see and you continuously read on labels. Many people now are saying the foods that you buy, read the labels and see what they're putting in the food, the kinds of foods that are really destroying the body that God created to live for a certain time. I see now a lady just passed a bill the other day where they were putting some plastic in a Subway. It was in Subway, the Subway sandwiches, the bread in Subway. Subway took it out 2 weeks ago because they were putting in an ingredient that they used to make plastic. It was coming into our bodies. We've got to understand that even plastics that we use around, we're putting it in the trash dumps. In our trash dump, there's a book called Garbology, which it shows the garbage that we're using. Let's see, I think I have it right here on Garbology. And it's a whole study on garbage that we're putting into the environment. In other words, plastics and paper that's going into sea. So now fish are being disproportionately destroyed because of plastics that we're putting into their. This book here, Garbology, Our Dirty Love Affair with Trash. And it's a tremendous book here by Ed Humes, and it talks about Garbology is an attempt to make sense of our historically unprecedented readiness to throw things away. We throw food for thought and even more. And all of this is really talking about what trash we're putting in our trash dumps, our toxic waste dumps. And along that line, we've got to look at the Keystone Pipeline. The big issue now that they're pressuring President Barack Obama to cut off, to stop. The Keystone Pipeline is where they're taking oil, tar oil, all the way from Alberta, Canada, bringing it all the way down to the Gulf in Texas. It's coming across our land, and this tar sand is absolutely devastating. We don't know the impact of it yet. So that's why the big fight across the country to stop that Keystone Pipeline. And this is coming up within the next 10 days. So it's not something 25, 20, 30 years away that many of us black folks, we say, well, that doesn't impact us, that's years away. We're talking 10 to 15 days away. Keystone Pipeline. So we've got to stop that because of what it's going to do. But why? Who do we have to fight against? We fight against principalities in high places, and the business people said, we can make money off of this. We've got to stop the profits over people. Here's something that's very interesting. The gospel according to the earth. The earth has a gospel from God that we've got to continuously be concerned about. It says, if my people who are called by my name will simply humble themselves, seek my face, turn from their wicked, greedy, crafty, stinking, nasty ways, then I will hear from heaven. And it says, guess what it says? Heal their land. When your land is healed, your mind can be healed, your body can be healed, your very ethos, because we're a part of the land. The last thing I remember is when I was doing a funeral, it said, ashes to ashes and what? Dust to dust. From dust thou came, and back to the land, back to the dirt. Adam, Adam means dirt. That's what that means. Adam, the first man, was created out of what? Dirt. So we go back to dirt, but now we're destroying the dirt, which is the land that connected us. And the land was a part of the air. It said in the day he created the heavens and the earth that we were a part of. So we're destroying all that. The birds that he put up, perfect birds. Now birds don't even know which way to fly. They're supposed to be going south for the winter. They're flying up to Alaska and dying because of what we're putting into the atmosphere. The world is on edge. How to prevent environmental and economic collapse. Isn't that interesting? The business people are getting into it. They're tying in economics and environment. And right now, when all of these, guess who's making the big money now? The big money every time there's a major catastrophe because of the climate change, there are companies coming out making millions. And they're ahead of the game. Now, they're saying that the economics will increase, particularly in the African American community, if we get on board. What I'm telling young people, do not bite the bullet. You've got to, once again, just like when computers came out, we have got to now understand that just because there's a new trend about environmental jobs, these jobs around solar panels, around wind, we're going to do the labor. We need to get on the engineering and business side of it when it started. They're already setting up all kind of green companies, once again, and they want to hire us. We don't need to be the hired us. We need to be doing the hiring this time. So I think that that's going to be incumbent when we start creating these environmental jobs, the engineering side, the solar side, not building the panels, putting up the panels, but let's build the panels. When you look at this, serve God, save the planet, a call to Christian action. These are all writings, not by one person or other people. How about this? The lost gospel, a call for renewing the nature, spirit, and here it goes, politics. One is on economics, one is on politics, one is on the environment. African American ministers admitted, we don't have the time to get into all of this. We've got to deal with feeding folks, getting folks out of jail, looking at HIV, looking at baby sister who just got pregnant last week, looking at all of these challenges, looking at our trash not being collected in the neighborhood. These are things that impact us. And now we've got to change that and say, wait a minute, we are now disproportionately being negatively impacted because of climate change, because of environmental conditions, and take this on the same way, and I go back to it the same way we took on HIV/AIDS. Finally,
go ahead.
Finally, this man here, E.O. Wilson, and he's been at Harvard for about 45 years, and I never heard of him before. He's been writing it, and he and I got into an argument because he said, I want to talk to a Southern Baptist preacher about why don't you all get involved. So I had to correct him. I'm not a Southern Baptist preacher. I'm a preacher in the South who happens to be a Baptist. But don't call me a Southern Baptist preacher. I don't want to be connected with Southern Baptists. I'm not. But we got into an argument about this, and when it came down, we were saying the same thing. How in God's creation do we come together to make a difference in the lives of people that we're called to serve?
Okay. As we close this out, my beautiful brother, thank you so much. You've given us a lot of information.
In a short period of time,
yes. I want you to close us out by answering those who says that climate change is a political thing and it's just a hoax that Al Gore put on us.
Is it a hoax? Is it a hoax? Is Al Gore creating the tornadoes? Al Gore created the hurricanes? Did Al Gore create Katrina? Did Al Gore create the many storms? They said that, some people even said that there were bombs set off down there when the levees broke, and all of these conspiracy theories. It's hard to do a conspiracy theory when we're sitting here in Valdosta, Georgia, and almost in the spring, and we're sitting with coats on because it's so cold here, and it's warm in Wyoming today. That's not a hoax, that's a reality. Now the hoax might come in when they begin to say, how can we politicize this? Because politics, unfortunately, centers around one thing in America, and that's money. So follow the money. And when they start talking about getting this either Democratic or Republican Party out, it's about how can I get my people in power so we can get some of that money. So it is not a political issue when you see asthma up 24%. It is not a political issue when you see babies being born deformed because of the drinking water they're drinking. It is not a political issue when you go to California and you look up and you can't even see the top of a skyscraper because of all of the smog, which is smoke and fog combined. Those are not political issues. Those are reality. And sometimes I wonder if politics are reality. It's when we come back to understanding the economic, the health, the educational awareness programs, that we can break through the politicalization of this. It is not a political hoax. And when you find people using that, understand, follow what they're saying. We're saying that the right wing or the left wing or the Tea Party or the Democratic Party is saying this for their own self-aggrandizement to attain this. Every now and then somebody will come along and they will speak truth to power. And whenever you speak truth to power, be prepared to hang on a cross or be prepared to be drugged behind a chariot or someplace. And so when people speak to the truth of the realities that's all around us, they will be in opposition. When everything is coming your way, you're in the wrong lane. So you better change and get to going right where you're headed. And that's where we are today. And if we allow, once again, the politics to run this, then we will all be sick. And there's one thing about climate change. It is an equal destroyer of people and personality. And we'll all be dead the same way.
Okay. I can't let you leave without this. You spoke earlier about the cold, the ice snow in Atlanta. What did you say? How did the streets look?
Well, basically, a few weeks ago, we had the ice and the snow came in. And in fact, we'll be doing a conference now across the country called weather preparedness, disaster weather preparedness. How do you prepare for the devastation? On that particular day, it happened at 2:30 in the afternoon. People knew that it was coming. And but what happened, Atlanta, and a lot of people don't realize Atlanta is not a huge city population-wise. This population of the actual city of Atlanta is less than 500,000. But any given day, it's over 1 million people there from the surrounding counties. What happened when the roads started closing down, the government closed, the state houses closed, the schools closed, the business closed, and at one time, millions of people came into a situation that was accustomed for only 400,000 or 500,000. So the ice came and everything shut down. Schools shut down, businesses shut down, and what we had to do on that particular day was understand that we were like ants. There was nothing that we could do. People left their cars on the streets. It looked like a surreal movie. There was nothing we could do. And when I saw that, I realized that I don't care how much education you have, how much money you have, when God says it's time to shut it down, He shuts it down, and you sit there and you understand that we're still subjected to a power that's greater than us. And it says, you know, if we can just begin to realize, if we can work along with the source that has given us health and strength and life and environment, if we can begin to work in concert with that, if we can collaborate with that, if we can coordinate with that, it's plenty out here for everybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's plenty out here for everybody.
Thank you very much. Brother Rose, what do you think of the university last night and the lecture this morning and what we've heard today? What's your opinion on it?
It was one of the most exciting and electrifying speeches that I've ever heard. Dr. Durley is an extremely gifted and talented person, but beyond that, he knows from whom his help comes, and it comes from God. And he made that clear last night, as he did again this morning. I have to confess that I was totally unaware of the depth of this thing that we call climate change. I saw Katrina, I saw Andrew, I saw Camellia, I saw Rita, and all of these storms came, they passed, but we did not realize that in their very wake, something was left here that we needed to study and take note of. Dr. Durley explained last night the ecological system, how that even the ant was made for a reason, even if we don't know that reason. The roach, the birds in the air, the animals that roam the forest and woods, all of these things God made, and made all of them for a reason, not to work separately, but in concert with each other. And once we try to make a difference in all of this, we start losing. And I thank him so much for what happened last night, again this morning at the prayer breakfast.
Reverend Rose, I heard at the previous meeting that there was a lot of young people there last night. And if the young people come, that gives me a lot of hope. What about you?
Well, there were more young people at that meeting last night that was sponsored by SAVE than any meeting that I have witnessed at the university, except of course the ball game.
And Dr. Eric Sanchez agreed with you.
Oh, sure, sure. I've been out there several times. You've been out there several times. I have never seen more than 30 people at the most in a class at that university to hear any lecture. But last night, I don't know how many people were there, but it was a beautiful crowd, and everybody just sat there with their eyes open and their mouths shut. And when he got through, they were on their feet just applaud. He couldn't hardly finish.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to let you close out, but since he's talking about population, you're talking about crowds, I want you to close out with my YouTube listeners. Have almost 500,000 views on YouTube. I want you to close out with the fact that you say you went to India and they told you that they were disappointed. Can you explain that to me? You're going to close out with that, that's it.
I'll tell you what's interesting, something that Dr. Rose was just talking about. Let's get real basic. Now, my favorite pastime, people always ask you, going, Dr. My favorite way to relax, I don't play golf. I still, in my mind, I play basketball. I love to swim, but my favorite pastime to relax, I watch cowboy movies. I have over 350 DVDs. I go all the way back to Johnny Mac Brown, Lash LaRue, the black and white, all of those kinds of movies. Now, one of the things that I learned in those movies was going back to Indians. You remember how we castigated the Indians? We talked about the Indians. We made them look like savages running around killing off the cavalry. But you know what the Indians would do? Only kill a buffalo that you could eat and use the hide. Only use they were in everything that they did, it was tied into nature. There was plenty of food for them. There was no illnesses. The Pilgrims brought a disease in with the Indian population, and they used, and then they came in and just began to kill the buffalo just for killing its sake, and were leaving the meat out on the prairie and taking the buffalo hide. The same thing happened in Africa. When they found out that Africa had a beautiful ecological balance between the elephants and the people. There were no rogue elephants, but they started coming in and they killed off all of the male elephants for those large tusks. And then all of a sudden the young male elephants did not know how to control themselves, and they began to ravage villages. And the only way that they could stop the ravaging of rogue elephants in Kenya was to bring in an old bull elephant, and the bull elephant came in and beat up the young elephants that didn't know how to be elephants, because they had killed off, man had come in and killed off the ecological balance before the bull elephants kept the other elephants in line. So we broke that off. Nature has a balance, and so now it's important that we allow it to become balanced again, and we step back. And guess what? There was plenty of food for the Indians. You could fish. There was plenty of water for fishing and all of that. I went to India the first part of this year with a man named Sri Ravi Shankar, who just received, and I think you saw, he was at Morehouse College, a young man here, Jeremy, who's with us today, and they came in and gave him the highest award from Morehouse, the Martin Luther King Gandhi Award. Now, how did I meet him? 15 years ago, Sri Ravi Shankar came to Atlanta. He was a guru, long white robes, a big black beard, and he wanted to meet with some African-American pastors. And most of the African-American pastors said, well, what's this hippie doing coming to town? We don't have time. He's some weird guy with his beard and all these robes. So I said, come on to Providence and let's hear what you're talking about. And he came and he shared with us about love and about compassion. He sounded at times like the Dalai Lama. Now that's kind of strange in an African-American church on a Sunday morning. But we did. 15 years later, he won this award. He said, before I go to Morehouse to receive it, I want Durley to come and sit with me. So I came and sit next to him at Morehouse and received this award. He said, I want you to come to India. So when I got to India this year, he said, we don't have many people to talk to you today. it's only going to be a few people that's coming on Monday. And I said, it doesn't matter. Jesus says, well, 2 or 3 are gathered together. I'm in the midst. So I got on a golf cart, rode around, and when I got up there, I looked at the crowd. There were 70,000 people there that night. The next night was 95,000. We talked about love, compassion. It's all about your perspective. What is the size of your crowd? What is the size of your heart? What is the size of your vision? What is the size of your direction? I think our vision and our direction now has to be as large as God will allow it to be. And one of the biggest visions that we can have now is to step in, and change climate change and what we're doing to God's perfectly balanced earth. When we do that, then we realize that we will create a better generation, a healthier generation, a more vibrant people today as well as tomorrow. Then the Word of God can go forth as it was intended to do, to fill our spirits, because then our bodies will be right and our minds will be in line with the divine will of God.
Amen. Thank you, my beautiful brother. This is the Ghetto Free Press, and this is The Voice. I'm George Boston Rhynes behind the camera. I want to be in your mind because this is The Voice. Just remember, information will save us, but ignorance will destroy us. Bye-bye. We go.